Everybody, welcome back to Wealth and Wisdom Weekly. I'm your host, Colson O'Donnell, joined with...
Hello, I'm Elijah, and today our guest is David Grimm.
So, David Grimm... Oh, wait. Before that, actually, I forgot. Thank you to our sponsor, National VA Loans, for making this podcast possible.
Thank you.
I almost forgot that. Oh, bad. But, yeah, we are interviewing David Grimm today. David Grimm is owner of a franchise of a Chick-Fil-A. So he's a very important guest and a very big guest for this podcast. So thank you to David for coming on.
Are you saying big because I eat all the chicken nuggets all the time?
Hey, the chicken's good.
Hey, you gain weight when you work at Chick-Fil-A, but it's all protein, so that's good, right?
Protein weight, yeah.
To start out, we'd like to know kind of background on you. Where you from? Are you from Iowa originally? Or
I am not.
Okay.
So my wife and I are from Pennsylvania, and about 8 years ago, about 8.5 years ago now, we moved out here to West Des Moines, Iowa, to get the opportunity to open our Chick-fil-A. So yeah, it all began in Western PA near Pittsburgh.
So can you tell us your story of what led up to you owning a Chick-fil-A?
Yeah, so business has always been something that I've been interested in. Ever since I was little, we'd always do little side hustles at school, and sounds a lot like you guys and what you're interested in. And as I got older, obviously I got married pretty young, and I never finished my degree. But thankfully, I met a pastor in our hometown. His name was Sean Lyons, and he kind of brought me under his wing as a mentor of mine. And I became the youth pastor at the church for about 12 years. And about 9 years into being in ministry, he had always encouraged me to pursue what God had for me. And part of that was business had always still been a part of what I've been interested in. And I brought to him this idea of what I was thinking about because a couple in our church started a brand called Madre's Mexican. It was a little build-your-own Mexican restaurant. And I looked at what they were doing, and my wife and I absolutely loved it. And we said, we think we could do this. And so we came alongside them and said, what do you think about us being your first franchise? And so we helped them develop the model for the franchise, and we built our own build-your-own Mexican restaurant, Madre's Mexican in Monroeville Mall. And we did that for about 3.5 years while still working at the church. And about a year into it, I had always had this burning desire to be a part of Chick-fil-A. All the kids in my youth group worked at the Chick-fil-A in our hometown, and I got to know the local owner, Todd, very well. And I began to develop a relationship with him. And I said, hey, Todd, what do you think about us applying for a franchise? He said, well, it's going to be tough, but you should go for it. And so we did. And about a few months later, I got the opportunity to fill out the application to own a franchise. And it took 2.5 years of interviewing before they finally came to the decision.
How many interviews to start your
You're talking anywhere from, I think it was between 12 and 15 interviews. So it's pretty intense. It's not easy, obviously, but if you want it and you know that you're supposed to go for it, your chances go up when you apply. And so that's what we did. And because we had run our own Mexican restaurant, Chick-fil-A actually came and visited it, tried the food, toured the restaurant, looked at our recipes. They saw everything we were doing and say, okay, this guy's an entrepreneur. He's not just saying he wants to be an entrepreneur. He's putting his money where his mouth is, literally. And all the blood, sweat, and tears were worth it for the 3.5 years that we ran that Mexican restaurant. And then we sold it to be able to get the opportunity to come here. They said, David, what do you think about West Des Moines, Iowa? And my wife and I were like, we have no idea. It had probably been the one state we never traveled to, and no family here. We have family all across the United States except for Iowa. And so we came here and we absolutely fell in love with the area. And we said, all right, I think this is where we should be. And so in, May of 2015, I moved out here before my family to get boots on the ground and just start the grand opening process of hiring and doing all the fun things that you got to do to be able to get a business off the ground.
Very cool. That must have been nerve-wracking.
Oh, it was not easy, but it was well worth it.
I believe it, yeah. So I think you told me this at one point when I used to work for David, by the way. I used to work at Chick-fil-A.
That's right.
I don't have a job right now, though. So
hey, we're always hiring back, Colson. We're always looking for good people.
Maybe. I'm enjoying my time off right now. Finishing my last year of school.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. But I think you told me, isn't it rarer to own a Chick-fil-A than win the lottery? I
So
feel like you told me that at
it's
one point.
kind of like that.
Okay.
There's some statistics out there, and it's easier to get into the FBI, the CIA,
Really?
and Harvard all combined than it is to be able to get your own Chick-fil-A.
Wow.
Now, that doesn't mean that I'm smarter than all those people. I'm not. It just means they're looking for the right fit.
Mhm.
And so the year I applied, there was about 30,000 applicants, and only about 26 of us got selected from in the external route, which means you didn't come up through Chick-fil-A. You were an external candidate. But nowadays, there's about 200,000 applicants a year, and only about 100 get selected out of that each year. Yeah. So it's pretty intense.
Wow.
But it's worth it if you get the opportunity.
Is that like 0.2%?
It's less than that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's pretty slim.
Jeez.
I guess my next question, what were like some unexpected challenges that you faced, I guess, opening up the Chick-fil-A or something?
Yeah. So it's probably true for any business, but when you're getting a business off the ground, you can't expect to make money right away. And the hard part is you need money to be able to keep going and to be able to live and to be able to have a cushion to be able to pay for all your living expenses personally, and yet all these grand opening expenses that are a lot higher typically than what they're going to be throughout the year once you get the business going. So that's the hard part, is like, how long are you going to be able to survive not making a paycheck? And you could be putting in 80 to 100 hours a week easily and not making a paycheck to be able to get your business running. It's just the reality of really any business, especially when it comes to a restaurant. I tell people all the time, if you want to lose money real fast, just open the doors of a restaurant. That's all you got to do. And you start losing money. It just costs a lot to be able to run the whole operation. And so when you're opening a restaurant, like I said, we didn't have a whole lot of cushion because we were running our own little mom and pop restaurant. It wasn't like a huge money maker. And be able to open a Chick-fil-A, we had to have enough money to sustain us for, we didn't make a paycheck for the first 8 months. So, you would think a brand like Chick-fil-A that's really well known, you're going to come out of the gates making money. And that happens, but it's not always true. And so that was kind of a reality check after month one. We're thinking, oh, here we go. Finally, we're going to be able to write ourselves a paycheck. That didn't happen,
At least it happened the first year, I guess. I mean,
almost. Yeah, almost. So like we opened in October 7th, 2015. I'd been here since May, not making any money, all the way till about January is when we first made our first profit check. So it was exciting. We knew that we were going to be able to survive, and we could at least eat chicken nuggets if nothing else. Our kids would be able to eat.
Can you kind of like break down the process of becoming a franchise owner, like from the initial application process to being awarded the franchise?
Yeah, so there's a few different routes you can go when you want to become, or when you're interested in owning a Chick-fil-A franchise. So you could go the internal route, which you would become a LDP candidate, which is Leadership Development Program. And what you do is you apply for this program, and presumably you've had experience at Chick-fil-A first. You have to have your degree, and then you get accepted into this program in the interview process. And what happens is you become an interim manager where you're going all over the country at any moment's notice. It could be a week later, you're told, hey, you got to move here and be boots on the ground by this time. And you might be moving clear across the other side of the country a month later. And what you're doing is you're filling in the gaps when there's no franchise owner for that restaurant. So say, somebody passes away, or they retire, or for whatever reason they decide to get out of the franchise. These guys are coming in and filling in the gaps until they get a new owner to run that restaurant. Because Chick-fil-A doesn't want to own corporate run restaurants. That's not their goal. They want franchise owners that they can partner with and be in that community. So these guys come in and they do that for about 2 years. And if they do a really good job, they go through the interview process of being able to own their own Chick-fil-A. So that's one route. Another route is external, like what I did, where I came through just like anybody else, and you get online and you apply and you say, I'm interested in becoming a Chick-fil-A franchise owner. Everybody, well, even LDP people have to do that as well. It's interesting when it's time for them to start interviewing for a specific restaurant. So everybody goes through that process where you put in that application, and then it begins the series of gradual steps of you going through this process, and they have different phases. And each phase you go through, the pool gets smaller and smaller and smaller. It's because they're whittling down candidates. The process itself whittles down candidates. So you're probably going to lose half the people right off the bat of the initial application process, because a lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to own this restaurant and I'll have somebody run it for me, right?
Yeah.
They want their operators to be involved. And so a lot of people will drop out of the candidacy process after finding that out. Now, the cool thing is anybody can afford a Chick-fil-A. You guys,
How's that?
right now,
How much is it to, I guess?
guess, how much do you think it would be for a franchise fee to be able to own a Chick-fil-A?
I want to say 20 grand.
10 grand.
10 grand?
Yeah.
Really?
10 grand. Anybody can afford it.
No other external fees?
I mean, you're going to be putting more money into it as you're running the business,
Right.
all the fee, all the money that you're generating, you're going to be spending more expenditures. But for the franchise fee, it's only 10 grand.
Really?
Yeah.
But then again, it's so hard to
yes,
be awarded.
Exactly. But it doesn't mean anybody can get one just because they can afford it.
Right.
But anybody, it's available for anyone. And that's why Truett Cathy did that, because he wanted everybody to have the opportunity to be able to own a Chick-fil-A.
How much do they help you after awarding you with that Chick-fil-A?
Chick-fil-A
Are they hands off?
is awesome. No.
Okay.
No, it's not like any other franchise. So Chick-fil-A, their motto is to be in business for yourself, but not by yourself. So you get a lot of support through Chick-fil-A. Now, we're paying for that support, obviously, through our franchise fees and things like that. But you get any amount of support you can think of. We've got consultants for every area of the business. You've got customer and throughput consultants. You've got food safety consultants. You've got marketing consultants. You've got all these different consultants at your fingertip you can call at any time to help you troubleshoot or work through steps to help make your business better. And besides that, every year it's like going through a master class with Chick-fil-A, because they take you to different conferences that you're a part of, and they bring in world-renowned speakers and experts in their field to help you grow and learn and develop. And they support you 100%. They're right behind you every step of the way. Now, you do take 100% of the risk as a business owner. So if the business fails, Chick-fil-A is not coming in and bailing you out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You still got to be smart about how you run your business. If you do something really stupid and get sued, you're the one getting sued, not Chick-fil-A, because it's your business. So does that make sense? So
Right.
You do have a lot of support, but you're still in business, for yourself, just not by yourself.
Have you
That's
ever
really
gotten
cool.
any sued or any legal, I guess?
No, I can't say that I've been
Okay.
sued, but there's definitely been, there's always something. There's a lot of government agencies out there. There's a lot of people that are always looking at, this is true for any business though. You just make yourself, as soon as you open a business, the liability goes out because people are looking for quick dollars and how they can come against you to try to make a quick buck, things like that.
I remember like McDonald's, they didn't say hot coffee on it,
Yeah.
and then the lady got millions of dollars for it.
Yeah, it's silly. People are looking for a quick buck any way they can.
That's nuts. So I was going to ask something. It completely slipped my mind like a couple seconds ago. You were saying how, what you want to call it? It's completely on you if you get sued or something, right?
Yeah.
So to prevent you from getting sued, does Chick-fil-A have certain protocols or
So
something
yes, they're
that you have to
very,
run by?
So here's the thing. There's brand standards, and this is true for probably any franchise. There's brand standards that they want you to abide by because that's what makes their brand their brand. But the way you run your business, the way you structure it, the way you get insurances to protect you in different areas, like being, to protect from being sued, all that's up to you, how you structure that. Now, they might give you suggestions in those areas and say, hey, here's what some best practices are. Here's what some other Chick-fil-A franchise owners have done. And you learn from that and you share those kind of ideas. And so there's a lot of support in that way.
Okay.
But they can't really come in and tell you,
It's ultimately
this is how you have to do it. It's really up to you. How you structure your team, how you build your leadership team, how you structure everything. It's all up to you how you do it.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, if I'm making a Chick-fil-A sandwich, that's got to be made the right way every single time.
Yeah.
That's a brand standard.
Yep.
The amount of time we hold our fries, we're not going to serve them past that time. That's a brand standard. That's the stuff that we need to adhere by. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
What are some of the things, like you were saying, a Chick-fil-A sandwich has to be made the same? Obviously,
Everywhere you go, it should be the same.
Obviously, the food's got to stay the same. What else has to stay the same?
So there's a lot of marketing and branding standards. So when you're doing marketing materials, there's a lot of weird things that are out there that people will put together, but they might not be up to brand standard. There's I forget the name of it, but it's like a code of visual. It's called the visual identity standard. And it's like a code of how everything should be laid out, all your marketing materials. Like it can't be too cluttered, and it's got to follow all these different standards and protocols when you're doing marketing through your restaurant. That would be one standard. Uniform standards. Like you have a little bit of flexibility to pick what your uniform strategy is, but it's got to be Chick-fil-A gear. It can't just be walking into a store and buying whatever you want for people to wear.
So like ads and stuff that I will see on TV.
Yeah.
That's all Chick-fil-A.
Or is that corporate?
Yeah.
That's corporate.
That runs through a Chick-fil-A marketing agency. We,
but you do like community advertising.
We can do community advertising on a local level, but if we do, it's got to follow those branding standards.
Makes sense.
And if we're not sure, there's a whole marketing team at Chick-fil-A we can run the ads by, and they can approve and say, hey, this looks good, or hey, you just need to tweak this and you're good to go.
Like for say like school, like elementary, they have like teacher conferences.
Yeah.
And say if you go to teacher conferences, you get like a free fry. Can you do that? But you'd have to go through corporate, I guess.
We would have to probably get that approved of what the wording would be, how you would advertise that. And then there's times where they can't really tell you no, but they might be like, it might not be a good idea to partner with that thing. It doesn't look good on you or the brand. And like, okay, that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. That helped a lot, actually. Next point that I'm going to be going into, or next question I'm going to be going into is when I worked at Chick-fil-A, you ran it very well to make it seem like a family business, right?
Yes.
You want everybody to feel like a family who works there and like you can depend on those people. And I remember I still say it was the best place that I worked at because it is, honestly, because like I remember you do the employee appreciation week.
Yes.
You're bringing like food and stuff from other businesses.
Food trucks.
There's donuts one day.
That corporate.
That's just you, isn't it?
So Chick-fil-A will put out these ideas and they'll say, hey, you might want to incorporate this into your business. It's up to us if we want to do it.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So, but we do a lot, though, that is above and beyond that, like you were sharing. And the whole purpose is to make everybody feel cared for. We want you to feel cared for as a whole being, not just as an employee coming in and expecting you to hold these standards. We want to say, like, how can we come alongside you and help you reach your goals, even if it's not through Chick-fil-A? What can we do to support you personally even? And I don't know if you've ever remember being a part of sitting down with somebody and talking about personal goals and professional goals. That's very strategic and on purpose for a reason. Everybody gets met with every single quarter to see how you're doing and where we can help you grow. Yeah,
those are great because they're always on time too. Like I remember one meeting where I had late because I think I sat down with Catherine most of the time. Yeah. And she would always ask me what's up and then appraise you pretty much and just bring you up the next quarter or the next part to your raise because I think it's 25 cents to 50 cents.
Well, it depends, right? It all depends on how well you're doing, how much you're growing, what position you're striving for, you know.
And I really,
it all just
I appreciate that because other businesses don't do that. Yeah. They wait like a year, but you guys do it quarterly.
And we want to make sure we don't forget those. Yeah. So we have very strategic times and we get them on the calendar. As soon as you're hired, we're like, okay, here's the hire date. We're going to schedule this on the calendar because that's what happens, like you said, at a lot of places. If the employee forgets, they're happy that they forgot because they don't want to spend any more money. Not us. We care about obviously the bottom line because if you're not profitable in a business, that's not good or healthy for a business. But we want to make sure we look at that as an investment in you. We're not looking at that as like, oh, we're losing money. We're making an investment in this person and we're valuing them and their time they're giving us and how much they've grown and all the effort they're putting into it.
So we look at it different. Money from turnover costs. Exactly. Because that keeps your employees happy.
You nailed it. Yeah. So if you can do what you can do to be able to invest in your people and make them feel cared for, like you said, it reduces turnover a drastic amount. And I forget what the number is, but it's a high number. If you can keep that person within that first year, you're saving like $5,000 a person just on turnover because of training costs and all the uniforms and everything that you have to do to be able to get that person to where they're a viable team member in the business. If you keep turning over, high turnover, you're you're costing yourself a fortune.
Yeah,
it's not good for anybody. It's not good for the team member. It's not good for you as the business owner.
it's lose-lose.
Yeah.
I know every day's different day to day, but can you give us kind of like, I guess, a base or a somewhat normal, I guess, day, I guess?
So I would say
today.
Okay, what I do today?
Yeah.
So this is interesting because this time of year is actually easier for me when December hits because everything's seasonal, okay? January, February, those are the two probably slower months of the year. September is another slower month. But everything's kind of seasonal. So in fall, we ramp things up because we're doing all our yearly planning for the next year. So we're meeting with all these special meetings and trying to plan different parts of our business plan. But then December hits and you can breathe because you're not having as many meetings. And we've done all our planning for the new year. So today I woke up, spent some time just praying and reading my Bible, enjoying my morning. I check my emails, all my messages before I head into work, respond back all the important ones I need to right away. I get there and then every day is different, right? So the first thing I notice is that there's all these rocks that fell out of our rock beds. I can't let that go. So I'm throwing all the rocks back into the rock beds. And then I notice all these fiberglass poles that are knocked out everywhere that are supposed to be for the plowing guys. And so I'm putting all those back in. I'm fixing all the cones for our drive-through. And when I see something, I can't stop until it's done. And then I get into the back of the house and I notice all the chemicals are mismanaged. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to straighten these. And so I just sometimes I get distracted and I start doing all this stuff. But then I get into the office and I talk with our office administrator, and there's always a number of things she needs to bring to my attention that I have to answer. So we took care of a couple workers' comp questions, and we had to find a file on somebody. And then I had to send out a couple important emails based on that kind of stuff. And then shortly after that, I'm making my rounds and I'm checking in with everybody for the day to see how everybody's doing, see what the plan is for the day. We had a lot of catering today, so just making sure those guys are squared away and ready to go with all the staging of everything, and they were all ready to go. And then I'm inevitably, anywhere you walk in the restaurant, if you're the owner, you're going to get stopped at least 5 times to talk to somebody that just wants to ask questions, whether it be a guest or a team member. So you take care of all these things. And then all of a sudden it's lunchtime. And so I like to jump in and help out. I don't have to. I'm not a team member. I'm not an employee of the restaurant, but I love jumping in and I love running food and I love jumping in dining room and helping clean things up. I just think it's fun. And I like being alongside our team members. And so I ended up doing that for a couple of hours. And then afterwards, there was a meeting that somebody scheduled with me, one of our team members, to talk about business. And I said he was prepping me for the podcast today because he had a lot of questions. He started his own little side business doing a detailing company, and he wanted to pick my brain about all these things before he started his business management classes coming up soon. So that's how I kind of finished off my day. And then I make my rounds again, checking in with everybody before I leave, just make sure everybody's good and saying goodbye to everyone. Come over here and meet you guys.
Awesome.
So that's not always a typical day.
That's jam-packed.
But days can fluctuate, right? So I try to do all the important things at home. Like I take off 2 days a week and work from home to do all my planning, all my catching up on all my paperwork or anything that you've got to do like that, where you're prepping for meetings or any kind of speaking engagements, stuff like that. You're prepping those a couple days a week at home and catching up on life. And then when I'm in the restaurant, I try not to do any of that stuff there so I can be available and free to help out or answer questions or do any kind of administrative work with our office administrator or, any meetings that anybody wants to schedule with me, things like that. Try to keep my schedule open.
I know you said it fluctuates, but on average, do you think a week you're working more than 40 hours?
Okay. Are you talking about right now?
I guess, yeah, for the December season.
When you first open, right, you're putting in just as many hours, if not more than anybody else, right? You're almost open to close. And then as you build your team and structure people that they can take care of all the day, important things that can't be forgotten, they have very specific roles. We have a lot of leadership in our restaurant. We have about 43 leaders right now in our restaurant. So it takes a huge team, right? So once all those guys are in place, now I'm free 8 years later to be able to do the things that I want to do, to be able to grow the business and the brand and meet with people and develop people. And I just wrote a book that's going to be released in February. So I had time to work on that kind of stuff now. And that puts me in a place where I'm in the restaurant maybe 3 days a week, about I'd say 24 to 30 hours a week. And then the rest of the time I can spend working on these kind of things, meeting with you guys.
What's the book called?
It's called The NeverEnding Pursuit. It's going to be released February 20th.
Go buy
Don't forget, you gotta check it out.
Copies
February
are
20th.
all
Yeah, well, you could get an ebook or you
Right.
could do a hard copy.
Where's it being released?
Anywhere they sell books.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to ask you about your book, but before I ask you about your book,
Yes.
we're circling back. Cluck Bucks.
Yes.
Did you do that, or is that corporate?
So no, that's something that. Okay, I'll tell you the story about
okay,
that.
so
what is?
all right, Cluck Bucks are a reward system for going above and beyond in David's Chick-Fil-A. Pretty much you can spend those Cluck Bucks to, you can buy movie tickets with them.
Yeah,
there's other
movie
stuff you can do.
We have a virtual store, and you can cash them in for all kinds of Chick-fil-A swag,
Mhm.
movie tickets, dinner out, Adventureland tickets. You can do paid days off. You can do all kinds of fun stuff with Cluck Bucks.
8 days off.
Yeah. And it's a daily reward system because we realized that was something that was lacking in our restaurant. And the idea of Cluck Bucks actually did come from corporate, but not from Chick-fil-A corporate from themselves, but from somebody that worked there. So when I went to corporate for my training, there was about a month-long training I had to go to before we opened our restaurant. And there was a department, I think it was the finance department, that came up with this idea to help operators make it engaging and fun. And they would do the same thing. They're like, we're going to give Cluck Bucks out today and you can cash them in for stuff. And I'm like, ooh, I like that idea. And we needed a daily reward system in our restaurant because I was so tired of catching people doing the wrong thing and having to write them up. And I'm like, this is not fun.
Yeah.
And how do we enforce the good behaviors and not have to do write-ups? I mean, not that write-ups don't happen still, but it's a lot less often when you're catching people do the right thing. So it's like a positive reinforcement system.
If you're looking for the bad, you're going to see the bad. If you're looking for the good,
so now every leader in our restaurant has the ability to award Cluck Bucks, and it's all digital. So everybody's got their own little digital bank, and you can check in on their file and see how many Cluck Bucks they got in their bank.
Cool.
And they can cash them in for all kinds of cool stuff. But it's a fun way to catch people doing the right thing, like I said.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
That I just had to know because Cluck Bucks were a really fun part of it.
But I'll be honest, there's not a lot of people that have adopted that idea. I've had people come to me and said, hey, tell me about your Cluck Bucks thing that you do. And so we share it with them. And some people have adopted like a similar reward system.
Is it
but
expensive for?
It can be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be expensive.
Paid days off. But
Yeah,
those
everybody
take a
in the
while to
restaurant
get
can get paid days off. So when you're paying that much
Nice,
PTO, it's not cheap.
Well, how
but
many employees do you have working at?
right now we have close to 170 employees.
And you own just the one over? Okay.
We own this location in University Avenue in
Okay.
Clive, and then we have our food truck, which the Chick-fil-A food truck travels all over Iowa.
Do you have the like little stand? Sometimes I'll see in the skywalks downtown.
So that's our location. We partner with Mill Civic for the Wells Fargo location.
Okay, yeah.
And then the Iowa Cubs is our location as well at Principal Park.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about your book now.
All right.
It's called
let's
The
talk about
NeverEnding Pursuit.
The NeverEnding Pursuit.
Okay. What's it about? Fill us in.
So I started a blog a couple years ago on our website. So Chick-fil-A's got a website, but then we have our own for the restaurant called Grow University. And the idea is like, that's what you're in. You're in a growth university at our restaurant. We're not going to let you just be stagnant. We're going to help you grow as a leader, as a person. And we purposely look to invest in people. And so I'm like, ooh, that would be a good thing we could talk about on a weekly basis in just growth personally. And so we started a blog called The Pursuit. And as I was, developing this blog, a friend of mine came in and said, hey, that could be turned into a book. I'm like, you're right. There's all kinds of chapters here that we could turn this into. And so it developed this last year into a book called The NeverEnding Pursuit. And the idea is that you're never finished until everybody's going to cross the same finish line one day, right? Which is, we're not going to be here any longer. And until then, you shouldn't stop, right? There's this idea of retirement, but it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, you're going to not be able to continue the same intensity that you have your entire life. You're going to slow down at some point, but that doesn't mean you should ever stop growing. There's all these cool like goals that you can set, but those are just like checkpoints along the way. They're not meant like to be a finish line that you stop at and just say, I'm going to take it easy now. The goal is that you never stop pursuing more growth and more of the opportunities that God has for you. You always continue to look for those. And I believe if you do that, you find that the joy is in the pursuit, not in the goals. Like the goals are good and they're good checkpoints, like I said, of being able to celebrate along the way. But if you're not enjoying the process and the journey, you're missing out on the whole thing.
Yeah, like the journey over the destination.
You think that the happiness is going to come when you hit this destination, and it's not true. Because how many people have hit their goals? You know, I talk about Tom Brady in my book, right? He's got more Super Bowl rings than any single franchise in the NFL. Did that make him happy? No. He continued to pursue and went with the Buccaneers, and then now he lost his marriage. And, it's sad. It's very sad, because how do you stop, thinking that if I just get this, I'll be happy. If I just get this, I'll be happy. It never happens. You'll continue to chase things. And unless you realize that the fulfillment is in the journey, you're not going to be satisfied. So that's what it's all about.
It lasts for a very short
period. It lasts a very short period of time. And then you're back to square one, feeling empty again,
I agree. So you're never going to retire then, is what I'm hearing.
No. I mean, like, you may not be doing the same. I might not be doing the same thing my whole life, but I'll never stop doing something. Like, there's always something to grow into. There's always something more that you could be doing. And I don't mean like doing more stuff, but I mean doing better. I'm always going to I always want to keep growing personally. I don't ever want to think I've arrived. One of my friends, the pastor, wrote a foreword for me, and he calls it the arrival syndrome. People think they've arrived, and then all of a sudden, as soon as you think you arrive, is when you fall and you crash and burn. So I don't ever want to think I arrived. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You always want to keep enough humility to realize, like, I'm never going to be a finished product until I cross that ultimate finish line one day when I'm not here any longer.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. I like that mindset a lot.
Do you have a favorite chapter in your book?
That's a good question. Probably, I'd have to say chapter 1, just talking about your dreams. Mm-hmm. That really sets it up, and talking not just your dreams, but what's your purpose, and discovering what your purpose is. I think if you can get that, that's a foundation for everything else. You build upon that. If you can discover truly what you were born for and what you were created for, the way that purpose is lived out might change, but you have this anchored foundation of who you are, and you live from that and find fulfillment in that every single day, as long as you don't lose sight of it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Looking ahead then, what are your goals and aspirations for your Chick-Fil-A franchise in the future?
In general,
I got so many dreams and ideas. My wife, I drive her crazy because I'm always thinking of new ideas all the time. But I would love, so we actually started a mentorship as well on the side called Proven Results Mentors. And you can look it up online, but it's a mentorship program for people that don't want to just grow in their leadership abilities, which there's a lot of that coaching out there. You can find a million of different things like that, but they also want to grow spiritually, which is the core of who you are. And if that's not centered and anchored, then everything else you build upon is going to be unstable. And so we developed a program called the Proven Results Method through a book we wrote called The Abide Factor. This is a co-wrote book with my old former senior pastor. And the Abide Factor is always learning about how to abide. So we want to continue to build people that way. And so we've got a few people in the program now, and we want to grow that. So I want to be able to grow this academy, so to speak, where we're developing individuals through our business and not just having them come in and grow as a leader, but we want them to grow personally, spiritually as well, and feel anchored in their life. So that's a dream of mine, to continue to grow that. We want to obviously have more franchises. We don't want to just have one, because I think it's really awesome, the influence that Chick-fil-A has afforded us to be able to do good things in our community and help people and make a positive impact on people. And, since I'm a man of faith, I look at that as like building the kingdom as well. How can I influence people for the kingdom of Jesus? Mm-hmm. And so I love doing that. and seeing where I can help. Now I think to myself, if we had more than one, how much more could we do, and how much more influence could we have? How many more people could we develop that are team members and leaders in our business? I just like it gets exponential at that point. So we're looking towards, becoming a multi-franchise business soon, hopefully. And I have other dreams too that I'm not going to share right now because they're a little crazy, but it's tied into the Chick-fil-A business, and it would feed a lot of our food truck program and a lot of these external sales that we've got going on. We have a couple of concession trailers as well that go around to different communities. And so it'd all be tied into that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Can you give us one of these ideas you have so we can kind of see?
Press him too much.
I'll tell you a couple. So
I want to hear one though. They all sound very interesting.
Yeah, I would love to continue to develop these books and use it as a tool to be able to influence people in a positive way, because my business coach that I hired for myself, he challenged me. He said, hey, okay, so all this stuff is multiplying, all this stuff is growing. How do you multiply and grow David? Because you're only one person, and you can only be in one place at one time, and you only have 24 hours a day. So it's not like you can give more, because you have a finite amount of what you can do. So when he challenged me of that, he started stirring my mind about these books, because even though I can't be in more than one place at a time, the book can, and I can leave that influence with people and share those ideas and have a way that I can still influence without having to be present. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So continuing to develop books and different resources where we can grow people and influence people in that way would be a cool dream of mine as well.
Super cool. Yeah. Who's your target audience for these books, do you think?
Anybody
who wants to read them?
Anybody that has a dream.
That's fair.
Right? Anybody that wants to grow personally. Anybody that doesn't know what their purpose is. Anybody that wants to find fulfillment in life. Like, if that's you, then you will get something good out of this book. If you feel stuck, right? Because a lot of people feel stuck right now. A lot of people just don't know what to do. They don't know what to pursue. They're lost. They're pursuing all these other vain pursuits. And that's the whole idea, is that only one pursuit matters. And do you know what it is? If you don't know what that one pursuit is, then you're going to chase all these other vain pursuits only to find emptiness. So that's what we're trying to help achieve in helping people.
Very cool.
Good goal. To kind of circle back, you said you want to maybe own more franchises. Is that hard to do since you're the only one? Is there people out there that have multiple?
Yes, and it's starting to become more. Mm-hmm. So Chick-fil-A now has developed a process for operators to become multi-unit operators, and so there's all these different criteria that you have to meet to be able to get that opportunity. So just because they build another one doesn't necessarily mean you'd be eligible to get it. There's got to be all these like different what's the word I'm looking for? Metrics that you've got to meet. And then they've got to know that you've got a team that is running the business, not just David, right? Because if David's the one running the business, how's David also going to run two businesses and divide himself? He's got to have a team and a structure in place where these guys are the ones running the business, and they see that you've got a good support system that could absorb now 2 units doing the same kind of work. Because if you don't have that, good luck trying to throw in a whole other multi-million-dollar business on top of what you're already doing. If you don't have that structure in place, you're going to crash and burn, or it's going to be a really hard way out, digging yourself out.
Do they have to, if you get another location, does it have to be close to the West Des Moines location?
It does have to be in a certain radius, because
so it would still have to be in Iowa, right?
Yes. Okay. There's a threshold where like you would have to share a certain percentage threshold. So if you're too far away, you're not going to share that, and chances are you won't get it. Doesn't mean that it's not likely, but there's these metrics now that are laid out that if you meet this criteria, you can go and apply for this. Doesn't mean you'll get it just because you apply for it. You still got to go through the multi-unit interview process to get it.
Gotcha.
Is there a renewal process that you have to do, say every 5 years, 10 years?
No. Nope. No renewal process. Yeah.
It's kind of nice.
Yeah. It is nice. I mean, other than your certifications you need, like you have to have a ServSafe certification if you own a restaurant. That's true for anybody. It expires. Chick-fil-A, they expire every 5 years. Chick-fil-A makes you do it every 3 years because they want you to stay up and up on food safety. Make sure you're not getting anybody sick.
No EcoSure and
Oh, yes. EcoSure, Deloitte. Yeah. We got all kinds of people
Yeah.
coming and checking to see how we're doing. So yeah, we take food safety very serious. We want to make sure that everybody's getting a good experience. We're not getting anybody sick. So those are the kind of renewals you have to do, but not a franchise renewal or anything like that.
So with you being busy, running a Chick-fil-A and all, how do you balance that between your personal life?
Okay, so you need people. That's what it boils down to.
Delegation.
You
Gotcha.
cannot do it yourself. And you have to trust people. And you have to be willing to invest in people to get them to that place where they're going to be skilled enough to be able to run the business. And they're probably going to make mistakes like we all do. I make mistakes. It's just that, are you gracious enough to let them learn from those mistakes and being willing to trust them and talk through that process if they make mistakes? Like, you have to let people free to make decisions. And if you can't do that, it's going to be real hard for you to separate yourself from the business. There's a lot of people that can't do that. And then when they get home, they can't turn off that red light. And it's like you never get a break. You just feel burnt out because you can't stop thinking about what's going on. So you have to find ways to disconnect. And the best way to do that is to build a team that you can trust when you're not there to be able to run the business. Even when you're there, I'm trusting them to run the business. I don't run the business anymore. I don't run the shifts. I don't come in and tell them, what to do on the setups, and if I do, it usually messes things up because they know better than I do at this point because they're in the thick of it every single day. And we hired them for a reason, right? If you hire somebody, you better let them do their job or they're going to feel miserable like you're micromanaging them all the time. We don't want that. We want people to be able to have the freedom and authority to be able to make decisions.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Do you hire for behavior or expertise?
We have a very specific hiring process.
Okay.
Expertise does not matter to me.
Gotcha.
I don't care if you've had the schooling that could be helpful.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say I don't care, but I'm not going to hire you because of that. I'm going to hire you based on your personality and your attitude and your, what we think you are as a person based on these factors we're looking for. We call it our elite hiring process. You got to go through a multi-stage interview process, and then we get to know you. And if we see that you're meeting the factors that we're looking for, chances are you're going to do very well on our team. We can train skill. Like, you're going to develop the skill, and we can show you how to do that. It's just, do you have the right attitude and the right mindset? Because not everybody can work at a Chick-fil-A. And that's why we turn away at least a dozen people, probably for every one person we hire, because we're looking for the right personality and the right attitude that care about people, they care about serving, they don't care about getting their hands dirty. My back of house director this morning had to clean up a mess in the bathroom. And you know what? He did it with a smile on his face. Like, having that humility to be willing to get your hands dirty is key. If you're not willing to do that, you probably shouldn't work at a Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, it's fair. So, what advice do you have for us or for anybody watching, anybody who is thinking about owning a franchise?
A Chick-fil-A franchise specifically,
Yes.
or any franchise?
Or
Yes, both.
Both, honestly.
Be willing to...
Because you have more advice for Chick-fil-A franchise.
I mean, it's true for any business, but, this is true for any business. It's going to be blood, sweat, and tears. It will be. And it just depends on how bad you want it, right? Because the money is not the most important thing, right? Money is not, but money makes everything else easier. So money gives you the freedom to be able to do those things that are important, that you care about, and taking care of your family, investing in the community, investing in, like, we support a lot of missionaries, and we believe in that kind of stuff, and supporting our local church. It affords you all these opportunities that you wouldn't have otherwise, or at least not as many opportunities as you would have otherwise. So money's not bad. So that's a good pursuit, right? Money is a good pursuit because you need money for all kinds of things to be able to fuel what's important. Now, if your sole reason is to get in business just because you want to be rich, you're going to be miserable still. Even if you make money, you will be miserable if that's your goal. It won't be enough. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You will always never feel like it's enough. So if that's the only reason you're getting into business or a franchise, you shouldn't do it. And chances are you probably won't make money for a while. Another thing is, you got to know the facts before you're getting into business. However, it shouldn't discourage you. It should make you feel determined that, okay, I don't care what the facts are, but I'm going to persevere until it becomes successful until it works. Like, I forget what it is. I think it's like half of all businesses fail in the first 5 years. All businesses. That's crazy.
That is.
And it's even higher for restaurants. So just knowing that that's the reality. Knowing, like, okay, I'll tell you one other thing. So when I applied for a Chick-fil-A, I had to watch a video to learn what the statistics were. So they would know, they wanted me to know what I was about to go through, that it was going to be a very slim chance that I would get this opportunity. Well, I watched it that one time, and that was enough for me, and I didn't want to hear it again after that. Each stage of the process, I'm like, I don't care. I don't want to know. I know I'm supposed to do this, so don't tell me what the statistics are. I'm going to keep pursuing this no matter what. So if you know it's what you're supposed to do, don't let anything discourage you from going after it. I have a friend that, whoops, did I turn that off?
No, you're good. It's still on.
I have a friend that started the interview process the same time I did, okay? He did not want to move from the area he was living in. If you're not willing and to be flexible and take risks and go somewhere that you don't know about, chances are you're probably not going to get the opportunity. You have to be willing to uproot everything and start somewhere else. He wasn't willing to do that. So after about 2.5 years, they told him, okay, well, you're not going to be in this process anymore. He applied again 2 more times, went through the interview process. Now he's in a 3rd time. And finally, Chick-fil-A is building a bunch of them where he lives. And so he may get it now, but that's just an example of perseverance. If you know that this is what you're supposed to do, it's been 8 years and he's still pursuing a Chick-fil-A franchise.
Damn.
So
hopefully he gets it.
Yeah.
if you know you want something, you've got to not quit. So I think I have a real strong feeling he's going to get it this time. I hope he does. Gary, you're going to watch this. I'm rooting for you, brother.
You got it.
You got it, Gary. Come on.
One question is, how do you guys deal with competition? Say Canes, do you guys do anything to?
No. I mean, here's the thing. You focus on what you can do well, and don't worry about the rest. Like, we're not going to throw shade at anybody.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to let them do what they do, and then we're just going to do it a lot better.
No sabotaging?
No sabotaging. No, we don't do anything dirty or underhanded at all. You know, we just know if we can continue to serve fresh, hot food in a welcoming, caring environment and value people's time and their money and who they are, we know we're probably going to do a pretty good job and not have to worry about the competition. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
As long as we're doing everything right, that's all we really need to focus on. Doing everything with excellence, I should say.
That's the right way to look at it, honestly. How does Chick-fil-A's corporate culture and values align with your own values? Yeah, so the corporate purpose, believe it or not, is it says to glorify God by being a faithful steward of all that's entrusted to us. That's what it says? Mm-hmm. That's amazing. And to have a positive influence on all who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. Wow. Doesn't say one thing about selling chicken, which is really cool. And that's the thing. We're in the people business. Yep. You know, we just happen to sell really good chicken. And it's got to be really good chicken. Don't get me wrong. It's got to be fresh. It's got to be hot. It's got to be right every single time. But if we're not taking care of people in the process and caring for the people that are coming through our doors, then we're just like every other franchise out there. And might as well not even be in business with Chick-fil-A at that point, because really it's all about the people. So we want to make a difference in our community and investing in people while still serving them a great experience. So I think that's really cool that I get to be a part of a company that aligns with my values, because I'm a Christian, and I believe the same thing. Everything I do is meant to glorify God, and that's the foundation upon which I live and I grow, and build everything that we do is upon that. I'll tell you an interesting fact. I read a book a number of years ago. So I was struggling when we first moved here. I was feeling frustrated because I felt like, I just came out of 12 years of being a pastor, and now all of a sudden I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not teaching Bible lessons anymore. I'm not discipling anybody. I'm not, preaching anymore. And I was like, what is going on? Because I knew I was supposed to be in business, and I loved that aspect of it, but I felt like I was missing something. And I read this book called Thou Shalt Prosper. It's a business book by Dr. Rabbi Daniel Lapin. And he's a rabbi, obviously, a rabbi. And he takes all these biblical principles and applies them to business. And it's like amazing how many biblical principles are in the Bible about business. And he tells in his book, and this was like a light bulb that went off for me when I read this,
he tells about the word businessman. And in Hebrew, it's the word omein. And literally translated, it means man of faith.
Mm.
And I think it means a couple different things. There's a couple meanings to that, right? It takes a lot of faith to be in business.
Yeah.
Because you can make all your best laid plans, but things still go wrong. And you have to have faith that you're going to make it through on the other side. Trusting in God is going to help you get through that. And the other side of that is being a man of faith in business means you get to live out your faith through your business. And so when I read that, I was like, duh. I haven't left the ministry. I'm still ministering to people every single day, and I get to care for them. And so that's how I live out my faith through my business. It's no different than when I was, a vocational pastor. I'm still in ministry, just vocationally. I'm a businessman now, a man of faith. So that's how our values align as well with Chick-fil-A.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Wow. Sorry, I'm a little sick, so.
Oh, that's okay. You stay over there.
Get you sick. We'll back up.
Do you have any other, I guess, like, not side hustles, like anything else in your portfolio? Do you invest in any stocks, crypto, real estate?
Are you able to take stock in Chick-fil-A since you own a franchise?
Chick-fil-A is privately owned.
It's private.
So there's no stock.
So you're not.
It's only private stock amongst the family, but amongst the Cathy family.
Okay.
So they're the only ones that own the stock in the company.
Wow.
Yeah. So you don't get to build really any equity in the business. It's all about what you do with the money you're making afterwards. So we do invest. We have a 401k at our business. We do an IRA, my wife and I. I do some stocks. We do a little bit of real estate. As long as a lot of the stuff you're doing is passive, Chick-fil-A is okay with that. But if you start doing like other businesses where it's brick and mortar and
you can't do that.
Well, you have to be very careful, I should say.
Because you're kind of taking business.
It can't be direct competition with Chick-fil-A. It can't be something that takes up your time because they want you to be invested in the franchise that you have. So you got to be present. You can't be absent owner or else you're not going to have the same kind of influence and growth in the business. So if you have something else and it's taking up all your time, now all of a sudden this is getting neglected over here and that's not good. So, a lot of the investments that you do should be passive, I should say.
Or is there a percentage of that you get to take from your earnings?
All depends on how well you run your business and what you want to do with your money. So, if your net profit is really good, it's because you've worked real hard on keeping your line items very low and managing your inventory and managing your labor well. And then sometimes it's a little lower on purpose because you're taking some of that profit and you're investing it back into your team or something else you want to do, like getting a food truck or buying a concession trailer. So it might be lower that month. It all depends on how well you run your business and are managing your finances in the business. It depends on how much you get to take home.
In that case, then, how long did it take you to write your book since, Chick-fil-A doesn't want you to spend all your time on something else?
Well, it's not that. That's not the case. Like, in your free time, and that's what I did. Like in my free time, when I would take, my administrative days, I'm working on writing the book, or late at night when I'm sitting there, instead of watching TV, I'm writing my book. So it's just about how you manage your time. It's not that they don't care that you do those things. Like Dan Cathy, our former CEO, actually wrote the foreword to my book. So he actually was excited about the book and gave me a nice endorsement. So, it's not that they don't want you to do those things. They just don't want you to be an absent owner. Does that make sense?
Yes.
They just want you to be present and be an influential part of your team.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
You got something?
Do you want to do
I've been asking a lot
one more question each so we don't take
Perfect. Yeah, that's perfect.
I'll let you go. Go ahead.
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks first.
Hopefully all right. Hopefully I don't steal yours. All right. So what are your own personal goals that you have? And or things you still want to like check off your bucket list that
my God, I can't tell you all those things.
Or just some.
All right.
So you are here for another
You want to
night.
go to Jamaica? You gotta.
Oh yeah, of course. I would love to travel with my wife later on in life when we start slowing down. It'd be fun to go all over the place. We talk about all the cool places we'd like to see together. Bucket list, I can't tell you them. They're too crazy.
Really?
Yeah, they're too out there that people are like, when they hear them, they're like, you're never going to do that. That's why I don't share those because,
It's okay.
I will do them. You'll find out about them when I do them.
After?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, like, I don't know if this is like really counts, but owning a beach house someday, that's something that I would like to do.
Does it matter where?
Yeah, it does.
Where?
So we love going to Hilton Head Island in South Carolina. That's like our favorite place on the planet. So we take our family there every year. Someday we're going to have a beach house there. That's a, fun goal.
Sweet.
But above and beyond that, so another thing that I like to do, which is why we started Proven Results Mentors, is that I have a desire to take care of senior pastors. And the reason why is because when I was in ministry, I saw how little money they make for as much sacrifice as they give. It's not fair. Mm-hmm. They should be some of the most highest paid people on the planet for as much as they invest in people's lives and sacrifice and give. And most pastors aren't pastors of mega churches where they're making good money.
Yeah. Most
are not. Most are smaller churches, like 100 people or less. And when that happens, I forget what the statistic is now. I think it's like, it went up, which is good, but I think it's only like 5 or 6% of people in the church, support the church through their finances. And that's not a lot. And so, these pastors are making very meager salaries, trying to support their families while doing good work for people and building the kingdom of God. That's why we started this Proven Results Mentor, so we can find a way to be able to help support pastors with supplemental income and different things like that. So that's a big desire of mine. I would love to grow that to a place where it's helping a lot of small town pastors.
Super cool. Thank you so much for sharing. That's awesome.
All right, final question. Ready?
Yes. Uh-oh.
What is one piece of advice you'd give your younger self?
Oh my gosh. I would say, don't do it, David.
Don't do it.
There's a lot of times where I should have been told, don't do it, and I did it. I was not a good kid when I was growing up. I'd say I was a decent kid until about maybe my teenage years, and then I started going off the wayward path, and then eventually got to the place where my dad had to turn me into the police.
Ooh.
Yeah. So that was hard lessons learned. I can't say I'm sorry for it because there's a lot of good that came out of that, and it transformed my life.
Everything shapes you.
You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It can if you allow it.
That's true.
Some people don't, and then they become the victim, and they think, oh, woe is me. Look at all the stuff that happened. I thank God that He used that for good in my life, but it could have very well turned out a lot worse. One of my best friends growing up, his dad always used to tell him, don't hang out with David. He's either gonna kill somebody or end up in jail. And he was pretty close. So I would tell myself, don't do it.
Don't do
a
it.
lot of times. Yeah.
All right, you heard from him, folks.
One last thing. Real estate. What are you invested in for real estate? Are you doing rentals?
Just rentals.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's all I want to know.
That's it. Simple. I think the more complicated it is, the more likely you could lose money. So you just got to be smart. Don't be foolish and just looking at the coolest, latest real estate thing out there. I think keep it simple and don't overextend yourself. There's so many people out there that are teaching about real estate, like keep borrowing on all the properties you have to buy more.
Yeah.
That's how they lose. That's how most people lose all their properties.
Especially during if a 2008 crash happens again.
Yep, they go into bankruptcy because say they can't rent out all those places. Now all of a sudden they don't have enough money to sustain all the repairs and all the mortgages that are on these homes because they're not getting enough income to generate. So you got to be smart and know that you can support those even if you don't have any renters. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect. Well,
don't be dumb.
So much, David. All right, everybody walk away with the lesson of don't do it, David, today.
Go check out his book.
And check out his book
when it comes out. It'll be starting to be promoted here pretty soon.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
I appreciate you.
Appreciate
your time.
Thank you. Yes, it was fun.